I found a pregnancy test in my boyfriend's backpack, and I knew for a fact it wasn't mine. I was just looking for Damon's phone charger. Mine had died and I knew he had at least 3 of them somewhere in his stuff. We'd been together for almost 2 years, and for that entire time, he'd been living in my apartment, the one I pay for, while he was between jobs. Yeah, I know. I can already hear what you're thinking. Anyway, I'm digging through his backpack for this charger when my fingers brushed against something in a side pocket. I pulled it out, and it was a pregnancy test. A positive one. I just stood there, holding it for what felt like 5 full minutes, trying to get my brain to work. I hadn't taken a test in months. I'm on birth control. This was not mine. The packaging looked recent too. You could tell it wasn't some old thing he'd forgotten about. My mind was just racing, trying to figure out what on earth I was holding. When Damon got home from the gym, I was sitting on the couch with the test on the coffee table right in front of me. I had no idea how to even start, so I just pointed at it and asked him what it was doing in his bag. He barely even looked at it before saying it belonged to his sister, Alicia. He said she'd asked him to hold on to it because she didn't want their mom to find it at home. She still lives with their parents, so I guess that was plausible. But it also felt off. Why would she give it to him instead of just throwing it away somewhere else? He acted completely casual about it, like this was the most obvious answer in the world. He said Alicia had been scared, took the test at her job, and then asked if he could keep it while she figured things out. I asked why she wouldn't just toss it in a public trash can. He got a little defensive then, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing and that his sister trusted him. The way he said it made me feel like I was being paranoid for even questioning him. But the thing is, something in my gut was screaming that he was lying. You know that feeling when you just can't put your finger on it, but you know? Damon kept insisting I was overreacting, then he just changed the subject to what we should have for dinner, moving on as if we'd just been talking about the weather. That night, I waited until he was in the shower and I called Alicia. My hands were literally trembling as I dialed, because part of me felt insane for not believing him, but I had to know for sure. When she answered, I tried to sound casual, asking how she was and making small talk. Then I just went for it. I told her I found something of hers that Damon was holding for her, and I just wanted to check if she was okay. She had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. I could hear the genuine confusion in her voice when she asked what I meant. So, I told her about the pregnancy test. There was this long, awkward silence before she said she was definitely not pregnant, hadn't taken any test, and had no clue why Damon would say something like that. She even let out a little laugh, like she thought it was a weird joke, and mentioned she'd been single for 6 months and hadn't needed a pregnancy test. I thanked her and hung up before she could ask any more questions, because I needed to think. Damon was still in the shower, and I was just sitting there, realizing he had just lied straight to my face with a perfectly crafted story, and I had almost bought it. When he got out, I didn't say a word. I acted completely normal for the rest of the night because I didn't know what else to do. My mind was a mess, but I knew I needed to figure out what was really happening before I confronted him again. Something was seriously wrong, and I was not going to let him gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. The next day, while he was out, I checked our shared phone plan records online. And yeah, I know some of you will say that's a huge invasion of privacy, but honestly, at that point I didn't care. He'd already proven he would lie, and I needed answers. What I found made my stomach turn. There were hundreds of calls to a number I didn't recognize. I'm talking multiple times a day, every single day, for months. These were long calls, too. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even hour-long conversations late at night after I'd gone to sleep, and during his lunch breaks. Times he told me he was out with his friend Martin. He was apparently on the phone with this person instead. I just sat there staring at the call log for what felt like an eternity, trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't some random number. This was constant, daily communication with someone he had never once mentioned. Before I could second-guess myself, I grabbed my phone and dialed the number. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. It rang 3 times, and then a woman answered. She sounded young, maybe in her mid-20s, and she answered all cheerful and happy with, "Baby, did you tell her yet?" I hung up. I just slammed the end call button and stared at my phone. Baby. She had called him baby. And, did you tell her yet? Tell me what, exactly? I tried calling back 5 seconds later, desperate to know who this was, but it went straight to a generic no-name voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. She'd either turned her phone off or blocked my number. So now I'm sitting here, writing this because I can't sleep. I have a positive pregnancy test that isn't mine, a girlfriend who calls my boyfriend baby, and a record of hundreds of phone calls he's been hiding. Damon is asleep in our bed. Well, my bed, in my apartment, like nothing is wrong. I know what you're all thinking. I know how this looks. But I need to be 100% sure before I blow everything up, because once I go down that road, there's no turning back. Tomorrow, I'm calling a private investigator my coworker Naomi recommended. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with, because just asking him clearly gets me nothing but more lies. I'll update you when I know more. For now, I'm just trying to hold it together. Wish me luck. I have a feeling I'm going to need it. Update. Okay, so I hired the PI and, wow. You guys were right about everything. Every single red flag you pointed out in the comments was spot on, and it's somehow even worse than I imagined. First, a shout out to everyone who told me to screenshot the phone records. I did it immediately, and I am so glad, because 2 days later I checked again and a huge chunk of calls to that number had mysteriously vanished. The PI I hired is a woman named Sally, not her real name, who my friend Naomi used. We met at a diner, and I laid out everything. The test, the screenshots, the timeline. She didn't even flinch, just nodded and said she's seen this exact scenario a dozen times this year alone. That was supposed to be comforting, I think, but it just made me feel like another statistic. Sally said she'd need 1 to 2 weeks to get me solid information and told me to act completely normal in the meantime. So that's what I did. I went to work, came home, made dinner, and watched TV with Damon like everything was fine. The hardest part was when he'd kiss me or tell me he loved me. I had to just smile and pretend my entire world wasn't imploding. He had no clue. He was still leaving his phone face down and taking calls in the other room, making up excuses about where he was going. On Saturday, he said he was going to help his friend Martin move furniture. I said, okay, and watched him go. 15 minutes later, I drove over to Martin's apartment. Martin answered the door in basketballs. Horts, looking totally confused. When I asked if Damon was there, he said he hadn't seen him in 2 weeks. I made up some excuse about getting my days mixed up and left, just driving around for an hour trying to process that he was lying about something so simple. Sally called me on Monday evening while I was at Target. I literally abandoned my cart in the laundry aisle and ran to my car. She said she had information and we needed to meet. I drove straight to her office. What she told me next made me want to throw up. The woman's name is Kaye. She's 24, works as a receptionist, and has been dating Damon for 7 months. Not just talking, not just hooking up, dating. Going out to restaurants, spending weekends together, the whole deal. Sally had photos. So many photos of them at the movies, at an outdoor concert, holding hands at the mall. In every single picture, he looked just like he does with me, smiling, relaxed, happy. And here's where it gets insane. Kaye is 12 weeks pregnant. Sally confirmed it. 12 weeks. That means she got pregnant around August, right about the time Damon and I went to my cousin's wedding, and he was telling me he couldn't wait to start our future together. Sally showed me photos of Kaye holding up ultrasound images while Damon kissed her cheek. A screenshot from Kaye's Instagram story showed tiny baby shoes with the caption, "Can't wait to meet you, baby girl." Damon had commented with heart emojis. I was speechless. Sally just let me sit there while I stared at the pictures of my boyfriend living a complete second life. She told me there was more. Damon had been telling Kaye that he was living with a roommate, me, his girlfriend of 2 years, demoted to roommate, and that it was temporary until he could get his own place. He told her he was planning to move her into my apartment next month. My apartment, the one I pay for. He was planning to kick me out and move his pregnant girlfriend into my home. Sally had followed them to a restaurant and recorded their conversation. I could hear Damon's voice, clear as day, talking about paint colors for a nursery. Soft yellow or mint green. What do you think? Kaye was going on about where the crib should go. Then Damon told her the second bedroom was being used as an office, but it would be completely cleared out for her. They were planning to turn my home office into a nursery, and he was sitting there discussing it over pasta like it was a done deal. Sally had another recording of them at a coffee shop. Damon had laid out his whole plan to Kaye. He was going to tell me his aunt was sick and needed to move in for medical care. He'd ask me to move out temporarily to give them space, and then just never let me come back. Sally played me the recording. I heard Kaye ask if he felt bad about lying to me, and Damon said I'd be fine, that I made good money and could easily find another place. Like my feelings and my home were just minor logistics. This wasn't just cheating. This was a calculated long-term plan to steal my life and give it to someone else. When I got home that night, Damon was making pasta, acting completely normal. He asked how my day was, totally casual, like he wasn't actively plotting to throw me out of my own home. I couldn't pretend anymore. I sat down at the kitchen table and told him we needed to talk. He got this annoyed look, but he sat down. I looked him in the eye and asked, "Who is Kaye?" I watched the color drain from his face as he went from annoyed to pure panic in about 2 seconds. He started to say he didn't know anyone named Kaye, but I cut him off. I told him I knew everything, about the pregnancy, about the plan to move her into my apartment. He tried to deny it, calling me paranoid and crazy. But when I told him I had photos and recordings, he switched tactics. He started saying it wasn't what it looked like, that he'd made a mistake. I asked him how a 12-week pregnancy and a plot to steal my apartment didn't mean anything. He actually had the nerve to say Kaye got pregnant on purpose to trap him, but he was going to break it off with her and commit to me. I asked when he was planning on doing that, before or after he moved her into the nursery he was designing in my office. He just kept changing his story, a new lie for every piece of evidence I presented. Finally, I told him I wanted him out. Not next week. That night. He immediately started crying and begging, saying he had nowhere to go and that we could work through this. I told him he'd had 2 years to be the boyfriend I deserved, and he'd spent the last 7 months of it building a life with someone else. Then I showed him the photos from the PI. The look on his face was almost worth the money I'd spent. He knew he was caught. He got angry then, yelling that I'd invaded his privacy. He said I was a controlling psycho and that Kaye understood him in ways I never could, and that she was carrying his child so she would always be in his life. And there it was, the real Damon. I told him he had until the end of the week to get his stuff and get out. He started talking about tenant rights, and I told him to check the lease. His name wasn't on it, and he'd never paid a single dollar of rent. He slept on the couch that night. Tomorrow, I'm changing the locks. The thing that keeps replaying in my head is that woman on the phone. Did you tell her yet? I guess I finally got my answer. Last update. It's been 2 weeks, and so much has happened. Damon was supposed to be out by Friday, but of course it wasn't that simple. Wednesday morning, he was still trying to convince me we could work it out. I told him the only thing we'd built was a lie. I was building a relationship while he was building an exit strategy. He started trying to reminisce about our good times, and something in me just snapped. I reminded him that I had paid for that concert, paid for that vacation, and supported him through 2 years of unemployment. And what did I get in return? I got to be his bank account with benefits while he planned to replace me and kick me out of my own home. I asked him if Kaye knew he was broke, if she knew the apartment he was promising her was actually mine. His face said it all. She had no idea. He got nasty then, yelling that I held money over his head and that Kaye didn't make him feel like a failure. I laughed and asked what his dreams were. Living rent-free and having 2 women pay his bills? I told him he had until 6 p.m. Thursday to get every single thing he owned out of my apartment, or it was all going on the curb. Thursday was chaos. His mom called, asking why I'd kicked him out for no reason. I told her to ask her son about Kaye and the baby. There was dead silence. Then she started saying, boys make mistakes, and I told her I was done raising her adult son. Alicia, his sister, actually texted to apologize for her part in the lie. When I got home, Damon was loading his stuff into Martin's truck. I told Martin he might want to ask Damon about the secret girlfriend and baby before agreeing to be his roommate. Martin's eyes went wide. After they left, I started looking around. The TV, the couch, the bed, the dishes, all mine. He had contributed nothing but his clothes and his lies. Then I started finding things he'd hidden. In the back of my closet was a duffel bag with brand new baby clothes. In his nightstand, I found a draft of a text he was planning to send me. It said his Aunt Sally had stage 4 cancer and needed to move in, so could I please find somewhere else to stay for a few months? He was going to use a fake dying aunt to make me homeless. Friday morning, I changed the locks. For about a week, it was quiet. I cleaned, rearranged furniture, and started making the place feel like mine again. Then, last Monday at 10 p.m., my phone rang. It was Damon, sobbing. Kaye had left him. She took whatever money he had and disappeared, blocking him on everything. He was about to be evicted from the new place he'd gotten, and he was calling to ask if he could move back in with me, just temporarily. He swore he loved me and had learned his lesson. I let him finish, and then I asked if he remembered telling me that Kaye understood him better than I ever could. I told him he was right. Kaye did understand him better. She understood he was a user and a liar, and she got out before she got stuck supporting him forever. I told him he could call his mom, since she was so understanding of his mistakes. Then I hung up and blocked his number. His mom called the next day, asking if he could stay with me because she didn't have space. I told her that her son's housing situation was no longer my problem, and I blocked her number too. Someone in the comments on my first post said that the trash took itself out. And honestly, that's exactly what happened. Kaye did me a favor. She showed him exactly how it feels to be used and abandoned, and now he gets to figure out how to be an adult on his own. I'm done with updates because there's nothing left to tell. Damon is in my past. I'm focused on my future, a future where I am valued, not used. Thank you all for helping me see that I deserved so much better.